Welcome, everybody, to Canuck of the Dead. Tonight's episode is going to be a whole lot of fun because I know in southwestern Ontario, when you think horror, this gentleman's name pops up all the time. You cannot talk about horror in southwestern Ontario without talking about this gentleman. It is Chad Archibald. Chad, how you doing?
Good, man. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, no problem. It's fun.
I did a little bit digging.
Yeah.
Because I was really wondering exactly how long I've known you. And it was during this film, Ejecta. You were doing the press run, you and Susan, and that's when I first ran into you.
Oh, yeah, because it was released through Anchor Bay.
Yes. Now, that one, we're going to talk about a bunch of horror and stuff tonight, but this one was very intriguing because remember you telling me the story. This movie was made twice, right?
Yeah. It was actually, so I was a producer on it, on the first run of it, and it was entirely a found footage movie directed by Matt Wheely. And the script was great, and we went through, and it was our first time kind of making a found footage movie. So a lot of it was trial and error, seeing what we could do. I think it was a very small crew. I was producing. I think I was actually gaffing as well. So it was just like 13 dudes out in a house way in the middle of, I don't know, Owen Sound or something like that. And yeah, once we got the film entirely done, it was great, but it was it just there were some elements of it that learning curve of trying to figure out how to do a found footage thing and do it right, and kind of still hit all your beats and stuff. And yeah, after we watched it, started chatting with Matt and Tony Burgess, the writer, and started chatting about, what would have been really cool if we had this and this. We started talking about more and more and more. And eventually Tony started putting some stuff down on paper, and we came up with this whole other storyline that was shot in like more of a cinematic world. So it kind of like, and this idea that it kind of goes from found footage to cinematic world back and forth, and kind of you get to, see what happened before and what's happening now and kind of piece it all together. And Matt asked me if I'd come on board and direct that stuff. And it was a ton of fun. Yeah, it was so much fun going back. It was a very short shoot that my portion of it, and it was pretty contained in one location, but a lot of cool effects and, a lot of sci-fi stuff that I've never really done before. So it was tons of fun. Love working with that team. We did Hellmouth and Septic Man as well in that run. Those three films were all shot kind of together.
Oh, wicked. Well, and you also got to work with one of horror icon Julian Riching in this.
Yeah, absolutely. Love Julian. He's such an amazing human being, and we've worked together on a ton of stuff now. He was in Septic Man as well. He was just in our new movie Vicious Fun.
Oh, excellent. I didn't realize he was in that too.
Yeah, he plays in a serial killer who's an accountant / serial killing clown.
Nice.
It's it was a bucket list for us. As soon as we had this idea of this weird clown serial killer guy, we pictured Julian, and we're like, oh my god, I just want to see him put makeup on and go crazy.
Was he impressed or insulted that was what you thought of? You thought of him when you thought of that?
I feel like Julian's done so much stuff that it's like he's always up for a challenge. He was when he was in clown form, whether the camera was on him or not, he was like in character.
Now I'm dying to see it. I am dying to see him in a clown outfit now. So I can't wait for this to come out. I do have to ask though, because you guys jumped into horror pretty much right out of the gate. What was it that drew you to that? Because, you could have done romance films, you could have done drama, but jumped into horror.
Yeah, we started doing horror movies more because we liked horror movies than because we liked filmmaking. It was just something that me and Gabriel Carrere, when we were trying to figure out what were our goals in life, what we were going to do after high school. We'd spend our weekends garage selling for old horror VHS tapes, and just loved it. Just loved watching horror films, and they were just so much fun that one day we were like, let's try making one. And we just went out and got some books because the internet didn't exist back then. And did filmmaking or script writing for dummies, and then wrote a script, and then filmmaking for dummies, and made a movie, and did everything wrong. But it was just so much fun anyways. I mean, we were just out there with our friends. We just literally hired our friends to come and act in it. There's the stupidest stories of how we casted that movie. I just went out and made a movie. It took about 3 years to get done. We had scheduled, it to be done in like 3 weeks. So we made a lot of mistakes, but it got done and sold to Lionsgate and Alliance Lannis, and started the ball rolling.
Well, and see, part of your Black Fawn crew, Benner, he always said one piece of advice he gave me, and it's stuck home, is the first movie you make will always be the worst movie you make. Yeah. And that's true, because like you said, you learned so much in that first film.
Yeah, that was our film school for sure.
Yes.
We went out and we did we never even had a boom mic on set. We just went out and filmed the movie with on-camera audio because we were just clueless. We didn't know. I don't know. We had no idea how to make a movie. And then when the whole movie was done, we cut it all together and showed someone, and they were like, "Why is the audio so bad? Like, where's your raw audio?" And we were like, "This is it." Yeah. So we ended up going back, and I built a sound booth in our basement townhouse, and re-recorded every piece of sound in the entire movie myself. Just did all the lines of dialogue over, had all the cast in, re-recorded everything in Vegas Video. It's not even like an audio program. And mixed the whole movie, just trial and error, figuring out how to do it as we went. And then, got it all done, and that was enough to sell it. So,
see, I feel a little bit better then, because our first film, we had boom mics, but they were patched right into the camera. So our raw audio was right on the film. There was no... So we were only a hair ahead. That was Desperate Souls?
That was Desperate Souls, yeah.
Okay. Some of the people I talked to, they never put their first film on IMDb. So that's why I was just curious.
Yeah, no, it's I'm still proud of it because we just worked so hard on it. But oh man, I would not want to sit through that ever again in my life.
Well, and it got better from there, 100%. Like you went on to Never Lost, right? Yep. I think was next. And then...
we did If a Tree Falls, Dead Genesis, a couple other ones before Never Lost.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Because Never Lost, we finally, had some people that knew what they were doing a little bit. Not that, not anything against any of the people that we were working with before, but all of us were just trying to figure it out, And I think Never Lost was the first time that we went and kind of got a real camera and, brought in some people that, have worked on other sets and stuff like that. Like we branched out of our small town of Guelph a little bit on that one. So it was, it was big for us back then. But again, it's still, the movie got released and we never color corrected any of it. It was just
really?
Still trying to figure out what we were doing,
Well, when you guys came around to The Drownsman, because to me that seems like the very first real, slasher type film horror that was there. What was your mindset at that point then? How far advanced were you into the filming?
Man, we had done a bunch of films before then, and at that point, me and Cody had got together, and Black Fawn had started, and we were doing a slate of, or we weren't doing a slate of films with Breakthrough Entertainment yet, but we had gone in and we had made a movie called Antisocial with Breakthrough, and it was done for just nothing, like $10, but a lot of hard work, and it turned out great, for what it was, and went out there and did really well, and they wanted to do a sequel and another film, and that's when we decided to do The Drownsman, and me and Cody sat down and pounded out a script. It was just something that we had always wanted to do. We actually went out and filmed a bunch of fake trailers, and there was this one that we did called Island in the Fog, and it was basically it eventually became The Drownsman. But we went out and filmed this cool trailer and, showed Breakthrough it, and they were like, yeah, this is awesome. So yeah, they let us put the script together and go make just the hardest movie we've ever made in our lives.
Oh, okay. See, I thought Antisocial came after Drownsman. It was before.
Yeah, it was before. Drownsman was our second one with Breakthrough.
Okay. Yeah, there's that one. That's got to be like the coolest poster, you know.
Those are my hands.
Really?
Yeah.
Look at that. But then you really gained notoriety with this one.
Yeah.
Yes. How did Bite come around? Because that is a wicked script.
Yeah, so after we did Antisocial, The Drownsman, Antisocial 2, Breakthrough Entertainment came to us and asked us if we wanted to do a slate of films with them. All very low budget stuff, but basically saying, you guys have creative control. You can just go nuts and keep making movies, which was great for us because we just wanted to make movies and get better at it. And we just loved being on set and creating. And, it was hard for us because we were like, all right, we're committing to 8 films with the same budget, basically, and all very low budget. So, you like to do a movie, then the next one be bigger budget, then the next one be bigger budget, But we were like, you know what, if we can pound all these movies in 2 years, then, there'll be 8 films and there'll be something great. We've got tons of ideas. We love making movies. So let's just do it. So at the start of it, we were like, okay, 8 films, and we had no scripts. We had, didn't know what we were doing as far as where these films were going to come from, which is always the hardest part. It's like the hardest part is actually just getting a script that's good enough to deserve to be made into a movie. So we, the first one we did was a movie called The Sublet. From John Ainsley wrote it, and we did that film right off the top because it was already a script and it was contained and it worked well. And then we had these sets that we had built for The Sublet, and we had a lease on a car garage that we had built all these sets in for a couple months. So we decided, started brainstorming ideas that we could kind of shoot in this set if we just reworked it a little bit and kind of reused a bunch of the materials and stuff. So had this idea of this woman who went down on a trip and got bit by a bug and started turning into a bug. And we pitched it to Jamie LaForest, who was the writer, and wrote a, I think I wrote out a 6 or 7 page treatment and sent it to him. And like 6 days later, I think he sent me a script and we went back and forth. And this is while we were shooting The Sublet. So as we were filming this, I was like reading the script being like, oh man, this is awesome. It's just, it's fun and gory and simple. And after doing The Drownsman, I was, The Drownsman like just took everything out of me. It was so low budget and so ambitious for what it was that, it didn't, I just couldn't pour enough into that film to get it to where it needed to be. So with Bite, we were like really excited that, this is something a little simpler and just fun, So got the script to where it needed to be. And then 3 weeks later, we were on set. We had rebuilt the whole set, changed it all up, casted the movie, and started shooting. So it was, and it was awesome because most of it was shot inside. And it was just this set that keeps deteriorating. It was about this woman who got bit by this bug. She starts turning into an insect and laying eggs all over her house and turning it into a hive. And, as her friends or frenemies or whatever start coming by, it's like she's slowly kind of taking them in and making them part of this big hive. But yeah, it was probably the most fun I've ever had on set, actually directing a movie.
I have to admit, it's got one of the creepiest scenes I absolutely love is where she's sitting there, putting together her hive, and those little egg things just keep dribbling out of her mouth.
Yeah.
It's so cool, but so gross. It's perfect.
Yeah. We all got into that. I mean, anytime that we could have eggs dripping out of places, we were like, okay, what do? We had little squeezers everywhere, and we're like, all right, get ready to roll. It's like everyone would push eggs up on the wall, and then we'd go action, and everyone would run out of set or whatever, and all this stuff would just be seeping down. So it was, a lot of fun, all practical effects too with it. And even when we watched it, I was like, this is pretty gross. But like fun gross. And, I loved it. I love gross stuff. So, and it wasn't like torture porn. Like it wasn't torture gross. Like it wasn't like cutting off limbs or anything like that. It was just like, it's like, if you don't like bugs, if they give you like the heebie-jeebies, this movie's gonna gross you out. So anyways, we went and we had the world premiere at Fantasia, and we were super excited. It was sold out. And as we were watching the film, I kept seeing like commotion here and there. and I saw some commotion off to the side, and I was kind of just like, anytime you're watching a movie for the first time, it's just like, I always hate it. It's like really uncomfortable for me. I'm just like, are people liking it? Is it, and you notice all the flaws when you're watching it too. And, you hear commotion and you're like, what's going on over there? Come on, Anyway, so whenever the credits were running at the end, the festival programmer, Mitch Davis, came up to me and he's like, dude, this is outside right now. And he showed me his phone and there's an ambulance on it. I was like, what the heck is that? And it turns out there was, 2 people threw up in the theater because they were so grossed out, and somebody got up after being sick and tried to leave, but fainted or something and fell and hit their head on a step. They had to call the ambulances. He was bleeding, had to go to the hospital. And so it was, of course that spread like wildfire, and everyone was like, it was so gross that people were puking in the theater. And I loved it. I think they called it a falling ovation when we were done watching the movie. So it was so much fun, and the press that came out of that was awesome. Everyone kept asking if it was fake, and I was like, we couldn't afford to have an ambulance on set. Never mind hire one to like come to the movie theater.
So I have to ask, and we'll dig into this a little bit more. You have your Blacklists with Black Fawn Distribution, and in the Bite kit, it came with a vomit bag. Is that the reason why?
No, and we actually made those vomit bags and handed them out to everyone in the theater before the movie started, because we were just like, hey, it's a joke. People, we did like a little test screening with some friends, and they were like, this is disgusting. Like, people are going to throw up. And we're like, yeah, vomit bags. We like to do little promotional things, whatever. So we handed all those out. But yeah, that's why we put it in the Blacklist.
That's awesome. So I want to jump back just a little bit, because you guys seem to take on a massive task right when you were just, starting to burst, when you did that 8-picture deal with Breakthrough. Getting into the horror films, like you said, with Drownsman, you realize that physical effects aren't easy. Didn't you feel like you might be biting off a little more than you could chew, saying 8 films in 2 years?
Yeah, absolutely. And they were hard. I mean, we're not in the mindset of just pumping out films for the hell of making movies. Like, everything that we do, we want it to be better than our last one. We want it to be, more engaging, a better story. We want to, be better filmmakers in it, deliver a better product, and just a better film that, we would want to see. So it was a challenge. I think a big part of the stress was actually just, writing the scripts and creating the content for it, and, finding the right teams. And yeah, it was taxing for sure on us. We did so much stuff on our own. Like, we built the sets. We were there every day building the sets with the art team. We were, the first people there setting up the craft table before. We were the last people there, throwing out the garbage. And, even like PAs, it's like we never really had PAs. We had, like, I don't know, if a friend wanted to swing by and help, sure. But at the same time, we got really good at producing films too. Getting a lot for our money, and coming up with creative ways to solve problems, and it just made us really great producers, on top of actually making the films.
I have to ask though, did that ever influence your writing? Like, when you're writing these 8 scripts, did you ever sit down and think, okay, well, this would be awesome, but we won't have time for that, let's do this instead?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And we also had, like, these are the locations that we have access to, this is what's going to work for this. And, you have to adjust when you're working with a small budget. Like, that's the only way that you can kind of get through it. And also, kind of pick your battles. It takes a toll on the creative sometimes, but we're also starting from the ground up. And because we were designing the films and writing most of them, or working with the writers from the ground up, we knew our limitations, and we knew that, we couldn't have a ton of locations. We couldn't have big special effects. We couldn't do any of that stuff. So from the ground up, we were kind of designing these things to be achievable on our budgets, but also, not easy. We always wanted to make them a little harder, something that's like a little bit too ambitious for the budget, so that, once the movie's done, it'll just be a little bit higher than all the other films that people are, trying to get done at this budget level. So that was kind of our idea for most of it, but Yeah, it was it was a challenge for sure. I look back at those days and I feel like that's some of like my favorite days as a filmmaker. There were just so many challenges, and just achieving what we did on those budgets was so fulfilling. But also, it's really nice not having to do that anymore.
That's what I was going to ask, because now you're starting to get up to the level where you've got studio, you've got other people in the pot and stuff like that. Do you ever just have the urge to take a weekend and go do old school?
Yeah, no, I mean me and Cody talk about it all the time. There's so much politics and so much involved with financing and pre-sales and casting and all that jazz to get a movie done these days at the level that we're working at now. That we always talk about just going out and just filming something, but it's like, it's not about filming it, it's about post, it's about coloring, it's about sound, it's about like the 6 months after of doing all the work to get it all ready and done, and paperwork and all that stuff. So I'd love to go film something and just have someone else just finish it.
You deal with it.
But yeah, no, we definitely miss that stuff. But it's still like, even the way we make movies now, it's bigger. There's a lot more people, but there's still the days that, me, Cody, and Jeff just go out with a camera, just duck out without anyone around us and just go film some stuff and little pickups here and stuff like that. And that's always fun.
Well, speaking of Jeff, you don't just direct and write, you also act, because there is this film.
Yeah.
Bed of the Dead. This film, I got to tell you, I remember when you pitched this, like you were telling me your pitch line for this. These people get trapped on a bed, and if they get off, they die. And I remember thinking, is this a short? Because I cannot see this as a feature. And then you brought this out, and it's like, wow, this was so cool. Especially that Axeman at the beginning. How did you cast him?
So that was an unfortunate situation. We had shot the entire film already and cut the whole thing, and we were just doing this intro for it. And it was just, us going out old school, me, Cody, and Jeff, and we had an actor coming out, big burly dude who's gonna like be the axe guy, and he's gonna, he's bringing his wardrobe or whatever, and he's gonna, chop down this tree. He's the guy who makes the Bed of the Dead at the start. So we're out in the middle of Erin, Ontario, at my sister's place in a garage, and we're waiting for him to show up. And unfortunately, there was car troubles or something, and he wasn't able to come. So we're sitting there. We've got our rented gear. We've got all the stuff. And it's just the three of us. And, of course, they look at Cody. Jeff looks at Cody. Jeff was directing it. Jeff looks at Cody, and Jeff is also filming it. He looks at Cody and goes, I don't know. He's, Cody's a lot smaller than me. He's like, I just don't believe that you're the Axeman. Like, you're the guy building this bed or whatever. So he looks to me, and I'm just like, no, man, come on. I was like, I was busy like with like paperwork and producing and like all that stuff. And but unfortunately, there was no one else to do it. So. And I also never had any wardrobe. So, it turned into like overalls and chains. And I was, and my sister was actually there as well, who's a little bit older than me. But we went out to this field, to this weird tree. And she was just watching me being like, what is this what you do? Like, is this what you guys do every day? It's like one of her first like viewings of us in action is like Cody's there in this weird druid like robe thing with this fake knife and cutting rope, and I'm there with all these chains and this axe, and Jeff's like the only person with the camera and not dressed up in something. And yeah, it was I did not want to do it, but
sometimes, like, he's an independent film, you wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, show must go on,
With that particular film too, you guys built a custom bed.
Yeah.
That thing was insane. How did that come around, getting that built?
Yeah, it was actually Cody's dad who came in, and he's built a couple sets and props for us over the years. He likes to do a lot of stuff. My dad as well was big into it. He worked on the Ejecta chair and all that stuff. And yeah, with this one, he built the entire thing, then shipped it down in a cube van, and we kind of all sat there and looked at and figured out how to put it all together. And then we had to have like 2, I think like king size mattresses sideways. Like that's how big it was. Like it was huge. Like you could like ride a bicycle around the size of it, you know? Yeah. So it was pretty epic.
Yeah. The poster doesn't do the bed justice. The poster is awesome, but yeah, that bed was huge. And I thought that was amazing. That brings us to this next film, which I thought was excellent. Isn't this near the end of the breakthrough run? Like the 8 pictures? Yeah. And this one came around because this one had an amazing set as well. Most of it took place in that cabin.
Yeah.
But there was no cabin there to begin with.
Yeah. So we went out and we looked around for a ton of cabins. Most of the movie takes place in a cabin, kind of like an Evil Dead style cabin. Where this guy has been kind of a recluse for years and years and years, waiting for the specific moment. So we looked around everywhere for a barn that would work or something that just kind of like looked cool enough. And unfortunately, it's like old rundown cabins like the Evil Dead cabin, they don't really exist. People just tear them down, or they're too crappy. They're already like too disheveled to actually film in. So we looked around forever, and then finally me and Vince, the production designer, we just went on a hike one day into the back of a wooded area near my sister's place in Erin, Ontario again. And, we found this little area that we were like, okay, it's by a field. You can kind of access it. Like you'd have to drive like vehicles through a field and everything. But there was like a little bit of an opening, and we were like, this would be big enough if we just built something. But, we kept going back to the fact that we don't have enough money to actually build anything here. The budget just doesn't allow us to go and get the lumber and all that to actually build like what we'd want to build. And me and Vince love building sets, where we love doing that. And I just kept thinking, wow, like it would just be so awesome to like bring the cast and bring everyone out here and actually film in the middle of the woods and like this cabin that just exists, and we can kind of like build it now and have like, nature just kind of own it a little bit. So we kept thinking about it. And one day, Vince actually messaged me and was like, dude, well, what about this idea? We just go around to all the construction sites and we just get like skids, and they usually pay to get rid of them. So we'll just take them for free, and then we'll just cut them apart and it'll be free wood. And I was kind of like, okay, well, that sounds absolutely insane. And 2, is it really going to be enough wood? Like, it sounds like you'd have to do like 500 skids or something. And he was like, no, dude, trust me. So I went out, me and a buddy went out with our trucks one day and picked up, like, just loaded our trucks full of these skids at this construction site, brought them to Vince's house, and he just sat there with a sawzall and started cutting out all the nails or whatever. And we started looking on Kijiji and Craigslist for just people who were like getting rid of fences or getting rid of any sort of like lumber, like old boxes or whatever, right? And we, determine if we thought that we could use that kind of thing. And then the other factor is, I remembered when we did the Drownsman set at the end of it, because this is like, we were at the point where we were trying to save so much money, and we had spent money on the Drownsman set as far as the lumber to actually build it. We built it all up 2x4s and drywall. But at the end of it, it was just, there was only a couple of us that would go up every weekend and just pull all the screws out of every 2x4 and just throw it in a stack in case we ever needed them. So we remembered that way out in Mount Forest, there was the skid of 2x4s that was just like rotting in the weather. It had been, left out in 2 or 3 winters by that point. So we went out there and we got the skid of wood, loaded it all in the truck, and we used the 2x4s to frame out the whole house. And then by then, Vince and Jamie Kipp had done, hundreds of these skids, and like organized all the wood in like sizes. And we just loaded all this stuff in trucks. And every weekend we just went out into the middle of the woods and just built this set out of scraps. I think the whole cabin cost us about $800 to build. And, $800. Because you needed, it still needed to be sound and safe. Like you still needed some wood that was structurally good, that make sure that we could build the set, and it was safe for everyone to do what they needed to do inside and fight in it, and the fact that it had to survive the shoot as well. And turns out it's actually still there. It's still standing.
Really?
It's still like you can go to the there's a fireplace in it. Like we always joke that we could put on Airbnb as a rustic cabin.
Oh, that would be cool.
Yeah,
but that's crazy. You spent $800 on a cabin and it's still standing now. That's buildmanship right there. That's
and it looks awesome now. Like you go out to it and it's terrifying. It's still got the pentagrams on the floor and everything from the movie, so that's just bonus.
Ambiance. That's what it is. Okay. Well, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Stick around because we got some bonus material coming up. We're going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite, I'll Take Your Dead. Maybe talk about some Blacklist, because that is one of the coolest ideas I've seen for releasing films. And then maybe we'll see if we can squeeze Chad for some info on what's coming up.